Hey everybody, what's going on? Bahroo here, and today I've got another episode of Best in Slot, where we go over the best of a certain weapon type, and today we're going to be going over assault rifles. Now, today's top 5 isn't so much a top 5 assault rifles as it is, these are the only actual top 5 assault rifles. It took me a while to actually figure out which ones are even worth a damn, because even some of the best assault rifles are shitty mid-tier SMGs in reality. We'll go over the actual stats in a minute, but there's no honorable mentions in this one. Instead, there's actually a lot of dishonorable mentions. But anyway, let's just go ahead and jump into the video. And before we do, I want to thank you again for all of the amazing support that you showed on the SMG video. You guys are awesome, and hopefully this series keeps on going. And yes, I will be doing it in the pre-sequel. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into number 5, 4, and 3. So, starting off with number 5, 4, and 3, as I said, we're going to have the Ogre, the Hail, and the Kitten. Now, the reason I say this is because the DPS of these 3 assault rifles is almost identical. As you can clearly see in the DPS chart, yes, this is all crits, but the all body shots isn't exactly that much better, and they're pretty much the same. In fact, the Hail is just almost awful because of the body shot, but because the crit modifier is next to nothing on assault rifles, it's really hard to pick a number 5 spot, considering all these assault rifles have a sort of downside to them. So let's go ahead and get started with the DPS test on the Kitten, and we'll see how this one ends up performing. So for those who are new to the series, I like to take these different weapons and put them up against Badmal, because he's a good sort of target dummy for testing both splash and just body and critical damage. So the Kitten isn't too terribly bad if you manage to get it in a point-blank range style fight. However, it can be kind of difficult to use this item at any sort of real distance for an assault rifle, which is where this thing starts to really drop off. If we go over here, I will end up seeing that the spread on the Kitten isn't exactly the greatest once you start increasing your range by just more than point blank. As we can see, it just doesn't on the accuracy. So that's where this major drawback is on this assault rifle. And now finally, for the parts for this assault rifle, you're going to end up having doll stock, obviously, for all of the different assault rifles, because that will drastically reduce your recoil. You're going to want Vladov grip and a rabid or ferocious prefix. It's really up to you which ones you want to have, but I prefer having the rabid for the extra rate of fire, unless you're playing as Krieg, in which case it will be very easy to hit the rate of fire cap. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next assault rifle. So for our next assault rifle, we have the Hail, which is an okay assault rifle. Once you learn the curve around using this assault rifle, you can definitely get pretty easy criticals, and it is another Moxie weapon, so it will end up healing you for the damage you deal. So we're just going to go ahead and move on to the DPS test as usual. And we'll see how this thing ends up performing. Now, the Hail definitely has a very large learning curve around it, because I don't use assault rifles ever. So it can definitely be kind of hard to find the sort of sweet spot for using this assault rifle. And if you're aiming down sights, you almost have no idea where the damn thing is even going, as we'll show in this next clip over here. So as we can see here, the assault rifle is, once you aim down sights, you really need to know where exactly these bullets are going to end up going, and how far down to the ground you need to actually be aiming. And if you're on console, I just don't even recommend using this assault rifle, because you can't even see the bullet trajectory. It's just not going to be usable. And now for the parts for this assault rifle, you're going to want the Vladov grip, the doll stock, and again, you're going to want the either ferocious or rabid prefix on this. So that will pretty much cover up the Hail. So let's go over our final assault rifle for the shit tier, which will be the Ogre. So now we have the ogre. The ogre is a pretty decent assault rifle. Again, it suffers from having no real crit modifier, and as well as not having any sort of elemental bonus. On Axton or say an explosive Krieg, this thing definitely does shine as one of the best assault rifles. However, in general, it is not that good, and if we go over to the DPS test, you will see that the ogre really isn't the most efficient. Like I said, it does lose that elemental multiplier, which is it's very huge when it comes to taking out enemies, but it's not the worst assault rifle in the game. And if you can throw this on Axton or throw this on Krieg with all the explosive boosts, you definitely can get much bigger punch out of this assault rifle, but overall would not recommend this assault rifle. And now, finally, going over the parts that you're going to want the wild prefix, along with the torque grip and dull stock. And again, the sight is irrelevant. So with that all of the way, let's go ahead and go over the number 2 assault rifle. So taking number 2 spot in our list, we have the Leadstorm, which is basically like a Kitten, but without completely god-awful accuracy, and the crit modifier isn't as bad. Like I said, the crit modifier isn't 1.66, it's actually just a tad bit higher. The rate of fire is drastically increased, and the spread, once you get down to the learning curve, is not that bad to deal with. So going over to our DPS test here, we'll see that the Leadstorm definitely can rip up Badmaw very easily, and just enemies in general, it doesn't have too much issue with. The only downside to this assault rifle is finding out that sweet spot to have it so that way the pellet will split and hit the head with all of the projectiles. Now for the parts that you're going to want on this, you're going to want a ferocious prefix. The reason for that is because if you go rabid, you will hit the fire rate cap very easily, and most of that will end up being wasted. You're going to want a Vladov grip, and again, dull stock is the best for any assault rifle. Every assault rifle should come with a dull stock because all the other stocks just don't match up. And obviously, again, sight is irrelevant. So with all of these out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into number 1. And now for the number 1, or rather only real good assault rifle, is the Becca. As we can see in the DPS chart, this thing is just an absolute beast when it comes to critting, because it doesn't have an ass backwards crit modifier and actually boosts the gun's damage, which is actually kind of cool. Obviously, the body shot damage, it rivals that of the Leadstorm. So for body shot, you know, you're going to want to go for a more spammy Leadstorm type thing. But for precise criticals, the Becca is just unrivaled in the assault rifle category. So moving on to the DPS test, I'm going to go ahead and admit I'm not the greatest at using Jacob, so I can't really show you the true power of the Becca. But as you can see, it will just rip up anything that it gets criticals on with its just 3.5 critical multiplier. So moving on to the parts that you're going to want for this, obviously you're going to want the Jacob's grip dull stock as matching manufacturer grip and the dull stock. The sight again is irrelevant, and for your prefix, I actually prefer going horse, but that's mostly because I have trouble handling the recoil. If you don't have any issues handling recoil, I highly recommend that you go either mag size or damage, because obviously rate of fire is not going to do anything on a Jacob since you can already fire it basically as fast as you can pull the trigger. One last note on the Becca is that it does have a minimum range, as we see here in this clip. The very first shot that you fire will continue onwards. However, after it travels a certain amount of distance, you will see that the 3 extra projectiles stay in place for about a second and then will shoot forward. Overall, though, it's not that difficult to use, as you more need to just get used to just firing it more than anything else. And that is pretty much going to wrap it up for the top 5 assault rifles. I would like to thank everyone for watching this video, and as always, if you learned something from this, be sure to hit that like button. You guys have been showing a lot of support for this series, and I highly appreciate it. There's no honorable mentions for this, but I will quickly go over where to find all these. The Hail can be found in round 5 of the Bandit Slaughter in the vanilla game. Next we have the Kitten. This can be found in the Everyone Wants to be Wanted side mission in the Torg DLC. The next one will be the Wild Ogre. This can be found in the final round of the Badass round in the Temple of Slaughter in the Tiny Tina DLC. Next we have the Leadstorm. This one can be purchased from the Seraphender in Sir Hammerlock's DLC. And then finally we have the Becca, which is a world drop in UVHM. No real specific area to farm this, you're just going to have to get it to drop randomly. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up again for the top 5 assault rifles. Again, I would like to thank you all for watching this. Sorry that this video is late. I had a few personal issues with some real life things while making the video, so again, apologies for it being late, but be sure to leave a comment down below on what you would like to see in the next video. Pistols, snipers, rocket launchers, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.